and let us all do we can to build a better future.
I gotta say, when it comes down to independent media and the new rise of so many other individuals that are actually speaking the truth to power, I'm glad to bring back a returning guest, someone who has dealt with a lot of censorship, but has constantly pushed back and has grown his network up even further. I want to introduce a good friend of the show, Franc Analysis, who has a great program on YouTube and numerous other platforms as well, especially on Rockfin. Franco, for our viewers, in case they don't know who you are, because YouTube likes to silence free speech advocates, people who speak truth to power, introduce yourself to our viewers and subscribers, in case YouTube just wants to be a jagoff.
What's going on, everybody? Kit and Hardlands Media, thank you for having me on. You guys have been showing me love for a long time, ever since I had around 100 or so subscribers. Currently at 6.2 subscribers on YouTube, despite all the silencing, all the strikes. I do interviews, I do solo videos, I do panel discussions, on-the-ground videos. I love doing what I do, dissecting the news. Most of my work is on Rockfin currently when I talk about, is it safe to talk about here right now? Are you guys on YouTube?
At this point, we are on YouTube and on Rockfin. So
Okay.
Look, here's the thing. I will never silence our guests or tell them to be quiet.
Okay, it's about the Rona, just to not get you guys
The coup,
too much
the
in trouble.
cough, the pandemic. Don't worry. I already said COVID once, so there we go.
And the boop boop or the serum or whatever. I've been diving into that, and what else? The latest stuff that happens in the news every week. Glad to be on.
Now, the thing is, recently, and I have to say this, I saw you debate somebody who goes by the name of Vosh. And very similar to his debate with Nico House, Jackson Hinkle, you actually debated this individual as well, him being very condescending, and I want to talk about that with you, and then, of course, rage quitting. So I think it's very clear that we rewind back the clocks, talk about the subject matter, how this thing got set up, and this entire debate process. Now, I urge everyone to check out Franco's full interview with Vosh. And there's going to be a point where a lot of you are going to be enraged, not towards Franco, but towards the guest. But nonetheless, let's all be polite about this. Start from the beginning, Franco. What exactly happened?
Yeah, so I have some friends of the show who sent me videos of him. What seemed like he was outing himself as an informant for the CIA.
Yes, we saw those videos.
Yeah. So I just posted that. People can make up their own minds on it. At the end of the day, and I told this to him when I was on this show, at the end of the day, what matters is what you say on your show, right? If it's helping the CIA, then it's helping them, right? But I can't prove whether he is or is not an informant. And that's not why I went to debate him. So it did catch his attention when I posted a clip of him saying that he's an informant, whether sarcastically or not. And that's what caught his attention. And then I said, I don't want to talk to you about anything that's subjective like this. Like, this is too speculative. So let's talk about jab mandates. So we debated that a couple days later. So we went on, and immediately he was trying to group me in with Jimmy Dore and the Gray Zone, because to his audience, he trashes them. So he was like, "Yeah, you're like those guys, right? You're in that group." So I was like, I would like to be dealt with, as how all people should be treated, case by case. All people are different. I don't agree with everything Jimmy says. I don't agree with everything the Gray Zone says. And even within the Gray Zone, there's disagreements among the members. Not everybody agrees with everything 100%. And
exactly. And I don't mean to interrupt, but we here at Heartlands Media, we have a diverse team too. We have different perspectives and points of view. And I know you're part of the Mikasa Network. I'm very sure, 100% certain that you guys had different perspectives and points of view.
100%.
But like adults, we're able to listen to each other and speak to each other and say, like, okay, that's where you're coming from, and not go ahead and start pointing fingers and start to cancel immediately. Sorry,
yeah, and respect it, right? Like, if there is a disagreement, or if someone truly is lacking information on something, then you deal with them with understanding and compassion. Right. What is it with this demonization of people for not knowing enough about a topic? Just inform them about it, or tell them to talk about something. And if they're not, and if you're an audience member, and if me or somebody else isn't talking about something enough, then go watch somebody else who is talking about it. So Yeah, pretty much immediately he was trying to group me in with the gray zone with Jimmy so that his audience can be like, oh, okay, I'm not going to listen to anything this guy says because I know those guys are crazy. He had just finished covering an article that the Gray Zone put out in which the Gray Zone released documents about a bread tuber. I can't remember her name, but she is a bread tuber from the UK. And there were documents that revealed that she is receiving instructions from the CIA. So he just asked me if I thought he was an informant or not, and I was like, I can't prove that, but we will discuss the jam mandates because a lot of it is based off of evidence, and we will dive into the scientific literature.
Right. Exactly. So the thing is, when we look at, because I'm glad you brought up that article from the Gray Zone, especially about BreadTube and how you have individuals that have been, acting like controlled opposition, especially in the progressive left. The individuals you named, her name is Abigail Thorne.
That's her name,
yeah. Abigail Thorne. Again, fantastic work from the Gray Zone. I know Max Blumenthal and Jimmy Dore actually talked about that article as well. They went into great detail for it. Everyone check out that video on your own time. Fantastic work from it. But I think it's because here's the thing that we've been seeing, especially from people who've been gatekeepers on social media when they've been against forced to vote, doing a lackluster defense of forced to vote for 15, March for Medicare for All, and the General Strike Summit that was, again, a lot of us contributed into. There's always been this controlled opposition by saying, no, we're not ready, keep your powder dry. Oh, this sounds like them just wanting to grift. But what we're caring about Medicare for All, we're caring about what these mandates are. We're also trying to have a conversation of why are we putting so much trust in a neoliberal system that has effectively abandoned us in 2020 and 2021? And throughout that long debate that you were going on back and forth with Vosh, what I found interesting was that he was doubling down and becoming more condescending towards you as you're trying to, again, poke holes into his argument that clearly didn't stand.
Right. Yeah, a lot of bait and switch. Whenever I would point to something that he was wrong on or asked him to present evidence, he would try to change the topic and try to make false equivalencies, like talking about, so here was my stance on the jab mandates. I think that I respect people's decisions on whether they want to get jabbed or not. I don't think that people should get fired for not wanting to get jabbed. I mean, what is that? You don't want to get jabbed. Maybe you're afraid that you might suffer an adverse effect, which the CDC acknowledges that myocarditis and other negative adverse effects can happen with these jabs. So if there is a risk that exists, people should have a choice on whether to take it or not. And if we're seeing that there's no reduction in transmission with these experimental jabs, which clinical trials don't end until 2023, and you can check Pfizer and Moderna's documents on that and the emergency use authorization document, people should have a choice. And what is even the significance of reducing hospitalization, et cetera? Like if you look at the scientific studies, they try to mislead us by showing the relative risk reduction instead of showing us the absolute risk reduction. When we look at the absolute risk reduction, for Pfizer, it's around 0.7%, and for Moderna, it's around 1.1%. So do you think if the mainstream media and Big Pharma were transparent in telling people how the reduction is about 1% or less, would people want to get these jabs? And considering how it's not fully approved yet, it's still only given emergency use authorization. If they were transparent on that and not forcing people to get it in their jobs, like they're going to lose it and then losing their health care. I thought we cared about people's health. If they lose their job, they lose their health care. So you're just throwing them off there so that they could die. So that was my stance. And anytime I would bring this up and he would try to say, oh, I don't care about lives. Like, do you care about these people who are losing their jobs' lives? It's like, oh, they made the wrong decision. So what is that? That's your subjective opinion, right?
Yeah.
You need to back this up with evidence.
And the thing is, what we're witnessing right now, especially, is this massive rise of homelessness, people being evicted from their homes. So, the fact that, again, we're seeing a lot of people who have a larger platform, be it on YouTube, Twitch, or whatever other platform they're on. This dismissal of, wait a minute, there are some stop signs. Hold on, let's look at the data, let's look at the information, let's actually have a conversation about it. But yet it's always met with anger and suppression or name calling, which is pretty pathetic, but it's to be expected on social media now at this point. Right now, civility is never coming back. So, because I think it's only fair that this is a perfect time to pivot to different subject areas, especially when it comes down to rising homelessness and what we're dealing with in 2022. So, final question in regards to your whole thing with Vosh. He had a little bit of a rage quit. What led up to that? Because I'm pretty sure, because the way you held yourself together, I'm just going to speak for myself. I don't think I could keep myself as calm as you did. You were able to keep yourself very calm, and I'm very proud, and I'm glad to actually have you on our show continuously, because if I knew how stoic you would be, man, I'd be like, hell yeah, we got to have this guy on 24/7. You really handled yourself well. So the rage quit. What happened?
So just leading up to that, I'm not a seasoned debater like Vosh is, or some of my colleagues like Nico House. Like, he's been on debate teams in high school. I don't have experience with debates. Like, the most I have is when I have panel discussions, there's disagreements, or if there's an interview and the guest says something I disagree with, I'm like, hey, here's my take, the key was just to not take what he says seriously when he's acting condescending, because that's what he wants. He wants to make me look like I'm losing. If I act angry when he starts insulting me, then he's just going to start pointing that out, and I'm going to look like a loser. Right. So the key was just to stay calm, stay objective, right? Whenever he would point something out that was completely out of his head, right? When he would pull numbers that just didn't come from anywhere, I would just point that out. I was like, where'd you get that from? Where's the evidence to that? That would frustrate him. And so when he realized there was no getting out of this, I was just going to keep showing study after study, right? I showed him the study from the Lancet, which showed that there's no significant difference in individuals' viral loads, whether they're jabbed or not. And that if you get the jab, it's for yourself, because it does reduce your risk of hospitalization and all that. But again, only by a small percentage. There was just going to be no winning for him. I was just going to keep pulling another study and another study. I pulled out numbers from Scotland, from Public Health Scotland, showing how there were plenty of people, and in this case, there were more people who were double dosed that went to the hospital and who died. I had more information from the UK. I had information which I saw from that Kim Iverson reported on. So shout out to her. She's been covering this well over on her channel and on The Hills Rising. Ryan Christian of The Last American Vagabond also, I learned a lot from him. But on Worldometer, you can see the numbers and compare Israel and Palestine, ideal countries to compare because they're in the same region. No significant difference in the people who are vaxxed versus unvaxxed in terms of hospitalizations and death. And in many instances, it was less in Palestine, despite them having harsher conditions that they live in. Right. So how can he debunk all this other than to just make things up? If I'm showing him the data in front of him and his audience, so he wasn't making me mad. He couldn't debunk anything with evidence other than just pulling things out of his head. So he just quit. I said, I have more data here to show you. I mean, what do you have to say about how there's in Africa, 6% of the population is jabbed, but they don't have a COVID problem? What is your response to that? He would dance around that and make false equivalencies in comparing adults who can give informed consent to babies who cannot give informed consent. So that's what led up to that. He said there was no way for him to win.
Well, there we go. Well, very similar to what happened to you, Nico House, Jackson Hancock, and so many others have dealt with it. Pretty downright sad. And, even then, I want to give a shout out to my good colleague, Daniel Lupker, because many years ago, 2019, what an innocent year, there was actually supposed to be a debate between him, Vosh, and Daniel, which never came to fruition because he kept giving excuse after excuse. And, we never heard back from good old Vosh. But seeing as how he's reacted and how we've seen these interviews, or debates between you and Nico and Jackson. Yeah, it says a lot about Vosh and his ability to control his rage and rage quit. So pretty sure it's just easy stuff for Daniel. So you gave Daniel a lot of good notes to work with if and when Vosh ever decides to debate Daniel. So there we go. Perhaps someday in the far future.
What was the topic for that debate?
It was during the primary, actually. Daniel knows a little bit more about it, but I'm just giving you just a short note version. Had to deal with the primary between Biden and Bernie when an innocent time, right? And Vosh was just basically saying everyone needs to support Biden. And how'd that turn out? So there we go.
Wait, didn't he get pushed left? I thought he got pushed left and he canceled student debt. Didn't that happen? Didn't we get Medicare for all?
No, but that's a perfect segue, Franco, for our next conversation. Because let's face it, we're in 2022, beginning of the midterm election cycle. And I want to bring this incident up. Earlier on in 2021, you and numerous other independent media activists and organizers were at the steps of the Capitol building, where AOC and Cori Bush were doing this great sit-in, talking about making sure that people aren't homeless. They were doing this big song and dance, even though Cori Bush and AOC had to run to stop Nancy, and they failed from adjourning the House. People are still being evicted from their homes and apartments. We're still dealing with the pandemic. We're still dealing with stagnant wages. And now millions of Americans are still questioning about the strength of this administration and how nothing has fundamentally changed. What does it feel like knowing that you have been calling this out, Heartland's Media has been calling this out throughout the entire year of 2021, and now we're going into 2022? Your thoughts on the Democratic Party, especially as we are going to probably see a huge uptick in propaganda and vote blue no matter who BS?
The sycophants will just keep calling us crazy. But the people who know better will see, wow, these people have been calling this out months before it happens, right? That they're not going to do anything. And I mean, what have they done? What has Ilhan Omar, AOC, Pramila Jayapal done other than grandstand and tell people to vote for them again, even though they have the majority of the House and the Senate, they have the presidency? Where is all these progressive policies? Oh, we just got to get more progressives in. But they're only going to push for this legislation, these bills that's written by the lobbyists, right? So how can we get something progressive, something that will actually help us, if the people who are writing the legislation that they are grandstanding for is written by the people they're supposed to be fighting against? Yeah, they don't directly receive money from, or some of them don't directly receive money from the people they're supposed to fight against, but they defend the people who do receive money directly from these people we're supposed to be fighting against. Ro Khanna receives money from these people that we're supposed to be fighting against. Ilhan Omar, I saw recently, was hanging out with Alex Soros, and right when she was criticizing Republicans for having billionaire buddies. I mean, isn't that her having a billionaire buddy? We've been calling this out. Before I even had this show, I would watch Heartland's Media, I would watch Nico House, the Convo Couch. They would point out, no, we're not going to vote for Biden if he is the nominee. We're not going to vote for Kamala Harris if she's the nominee, or Pete Buttigieg, because it's going to be the same thing. The same people who really call the shots, because that's what these people are, corporate politicians, or as a matter of fact, all politicians, because I'll group AOC and all these people in here. They're puppets for these people that are calling the shots, the corporations, the families that have been in charge for many, many, many years. So when they do these grandstandings in front of the Capitol, when they're saying that they're standing up for homeless people, all they're really doing is pushing the can down the road to give the illusion that they're fighting for you. Because at the end, what's going to happen? What did we see happen with that? The eviction moratorium was lifted. People who were still losing their homes before they were doing that, more people lost their homes after that. Did they go back to the Capitol? And the only reason why they were at the Capitol is because Nancy Pelosi gave them permission, and that's why there was no arrest by the police. If there was a real protest happening.
Yeah, it's only when they left was then people being arrested. It was like night and day.
Exactly. So they're not really there for us. I mean, we got to find solutions outside of electoral politics. Organize with your community. Try to inform as many people as you can about what's going on. Introduce them to channels like this, like Heartland's Media, like The Last American Vagabond, uh, journal outlets like The Gray Zone, Whitney Webb, all these people that are going deep into exposing these powers. Listen to people who know a lot about history. My friend Marcus Cage knows a lot about even ancient history, talks about these families who've been in power for many, many years. So that would be my advice to that. And then you will be called a conspiracy theorist by all these sycophants of Blue No Matter Who, and even some people who are sycophants for the Republican Party. But I mean, you'll be looked at as a prophet. It's not that hard to look like one during these times.
Now, the thing is, what we're seeing now on social media, especially with big tech, censorship on Twitter. You and I both know about the censorship on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and we're seeing the rise of various other platforms. But what is your perspective on how independent media can still get its message out there? Because what I'm concerned, while I'm all for competition and different video platforms rising up, like Rockfin and Odyssey, Panquake, for example, as another social media platform alternative to Twitter. We're seeing Getter starting to get set up. I'm still questioning that as well.
Oh, I saw that.
But we're seeing the rise of different platforms. But another concern is that we're creating bigger echo chambers in many ways. We're creating more echo chambers for everyone, so there's a lack of communication. How do we keep this overall message going around? Because in order to get things done, you do have to talk to people who have different perspectives or points of view, or perhaps live in different parts of the country than you do. How do we keep this conversation going? How do we make sure that the censorship doesn't make us get silenced or further divide us even further?
Yeah, so avoiding the echo chambers. One way to do that is pirate streaming, although I don't know how significant that's going to be as these big tech companies try to evolve as time progresses. Like they'll catch on to it, but for the time being, like what I've been doing, like with the Vosh debate, I didn't stream that onto my channel. I'm trying to stay on YouTube as long as I can to attract these normies. So have some pirate streams like these. Make ask your audience, like if you're a content creator or if you're an audience member, you can let some of these content creators know that you can offer, like, I don't know, some account that you have on the side that you don't use, and then you can stream on there some of the riskier content so that it could reach some of these normies. You can try doing that on Facebook also, but we got to keep the collaboration going. That's another way that we can continue to grow. Collaborations like this, I'm loving all these new content creators collaborating with each other more than ever. Before, it used to be more isolated. I don't know if you remember that, kid, like back in 2018, 2019, and even before that, 2016, these independent media content creators were more isolated. Like TYT was in their little corner. Occasionally there was like a few collabs. Secular Talk was in his corner. But then when you guys came along, you guys started collaborating a lot with the MCC Network. Now there's all these new people that are coming along. Indie News Network, right? With independent left news.
Yep,
right?
They're doing some great work.
What was formerly known as Fred Hampton Leftist, now Revolutionary Blackout, if I'm not mistaken by the new name. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
too recent.
Yeah, that's a recent update change that they made. Shame that they lost the original name, but nonetheless, I wish them all the best. They're doing great work as well.
Mm-hmm. So we all know each other. We're all collaborating with each other. The more people know, the more that this can get out. Something that I would advise the audience is that we can't do it without you guys. Let other people know, like other normies that you guys know in your life, about, hey, I saw this video, like something that they may care about, is like someone talking about, I don't know, like the jab, or someone talking about the Ghislaine Maxwell case, or someone talking about whistleblowers like Julian Assange. I was like, hey, this person covered this, like for more information on, you can check this out. That's a gateway right there. Mm-hmm. So I'm confident that we can still continue to grow despite all these obstacles, because all this is triggering is for us to unite even more.
Couldn't agree more. And I think now more than ever, we need to hear different perspectives. And what I want to see is the rise of more citizen journalists, especially as we get into this 2022 midterm election cycle. Hard Lens Media, for example, started off in the streets. We all started somewhere, and I think it's very important that we continue to build independent media, because corporate media is continually to silence free speech and free thinking media, and we need that now more than ever. So, Franco, as a final question for our viewers, just so they could find you on social media, just in case anything happens, because anything can happen.
Yeah.
We've been given some strikes. Like now, like 2 weeks ago, we got hit with our 5th strike, though we managed to reverse it. Where can our viewers and subscribers find you online and social media? What video platforms you want to promote? So that way they can go there, check out your work, and share your content on social media.
Yeah, on Twitter, I'm at B43Franco. On YouTube, I'm Frank Analysis. I have a backup channel on YouTube also, Frank Analysis Backup. You may find me in some pirate streams here and there from just like random YouTube accounts. I'm on Odyssey. I'm on Rockfin, which if you follow Hard Lens Media, you guys might be familiar with that. I'm looking to jump on some of these other new platforms that are becoming more popular. Like I'm going to look more at Rumble, although I don't really trust that, seeing as who funds it. Like I know Peter Thiel is funding that. So eventually it might become like a YouTube 2.0. What is that new one, Getter? I might look into that a
Getter
little more.
apparently is like a alternative take on Twitter. Kind of looks similar to it, but there's such a rise of so many different social media platforms. Pretty soon, I think a lot of people are going to become exhausted. But Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube and Instagram have already helped contribute to that exhaustion. So their policies.
And people should keep up with us and some of these journalists that we bring on the show to help you guys understand what our enemies are up to. Because in order to understand, okay, where are they going to strike next? We cover that stuff. We cover when there's going to be a new explosion in censorship that's about to arise, right? So we cover that stuff. We cover who's behind all of that. And yeah, I just got to say, Hard Lens Media, thank you guys so much for the love. I really appreciate that. Thank you for bringing me on.